Turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. I ain't gonna let Alabama turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking up the Freedom Highway.
Dance. Let me see you move.
Love never felt so good. Can't have died if it ever could. Not like you. Oh.
Hi, everybody, and welcome aboard to Local Matters. You know, singing was a way for freedom riders to keep their spirits high, and it was a way for them to hold on to solidarity, too. It was utilized as a political tool. Now, although 56 years has passed since that infamous day on Gurney Avenue in Anniston, Alabama, at the Greyhound bus station there, just days before President Barack Obama was scheduled to leave office, he and several other state leaders of Alabama made sure that Anniston would be forever remembered for its role in fueling the civil rights movement. Joining me to talk about the Freedom Riders National Monument in Anniston is none other than Mr. Pete Conroy and also Miss Georgia Calhoun. Welcome aboard, guys.
Hi.
Welcome back. And for those of you who are not aware of who these two people are, let me just give you a little bit of snippet about what they do. Mr. Pete Conroy, you are the director there at Jacksonville State University at the Environmental Policy and Information Center.
Yes, ma'am.
And also Miss Georgia Calhoun, a longtime educator and also a member of the Freedom Riders Committee. And you are a co-chair there at the Freedom Riders Committee.
That's right.
Wow, lots. You guys are busy. Guys, the titles, they say it all. You guys are busy. We got a big day coming up, you know? The Freedom Riders, I wanted to open up in song because to me, just when I heard that song, when I think about the Freedom Riders and how they must have felt when they were coming down that highway, leaving Atlanta and coming in to Anniston and reaching Calhoun County, how they must have felt when they were singing those songs. And song has always been so instrumental. We've got a big day coming up now to finally honor our Freedom Riders. Talk to me about that event, Mr. Pete Conroy.
Well, I'd be happy to. Georgia Calhoun has been my inspiration since moving here in 1985.
Wow.
And she and I have been involved with a lot of neat projects, but this one may be,
This is it.
It may be
This
the
is
largest.
One of the largest
Yes.
ones. Yes.
so the story of the Freedom Riders, as you've just described, is
Yeah.
truly one of America's great, largely untold stories. And, you know, there's no organization better than the National Park Service to tell
Yes.
America's great stories.
Yes.
And so this committee that Georgia and I have served on, along with many others, including my co-chair, Dr. Bill Harbour, who was a Freedom Rider.
He was.
He and I, along with some other great folks in the community, have focused in on two different locations. The Gurney location, which is where the bus was first attacked, and also the location out there on the old Birmingham Highway where the bus finally was firebombed, and an incident that made national and international news.
Right. You know, when I think about it too, you know, I was a little girl and I do remember the civil rights movement. I didn't understand exactly what was going on, but I remember, of course, graphics coming up on TV as a little girl, and it always showed what was going on in Birmingham, the dogs. There I am. And actually, I was in Chicago. I started my kindergarten picture, and you know, can you pick me out? I'm right there in the middle with my little red skirt on, a little white top. You know, Chicago now, just kind of getting off the subject for a minute, you know, Chicago is touted now as being one of the most segregated cities in America right now. But when I started school, South Shore was still very much integrated. So that picture kind of told a story that I was going to school. It was maybe 35 kids in the class, and there were only maybe 5 blacks, counting myself. But what's so significant, if I were to bring in my 3rd grade picture from that same school, it was all black. So that shows how the demographics were changing. People were fleeing the city and going into the suburbs, and a lot of this is after Dr. King was shot and killed. But coming back here, talking about Anniston, again, I remember the dogs, the water, but what's sad, Pete, is that for some reason, the bus story didn't really get a lot of hype the way it should have. It was like, yeah, it happened, but it wasn't talked about like the way Birmingham was.
I think that's exactly right, but oh boy, is that going to change.
That's right.
So on May 13th,
Yes.
this is Saturday, the day before Mother's Day,
Right.
we are really excited to announce this fantastic community regional celebration of Freedom Riders National Monument.
Yes.
Like you said, the story had not been told, but now with the Park Service's involvement, perpetually, Freedom
Yes.
Riders National Monument will be in both locations, the Greyhound bus station as well as the old Birmingham Highway location, and there will be a Park Service presence there forevermore.
Right. So our story will be told now, finally. Finally.
And one thing we can add is the climate
Yes.
and the attitudes
Yes.
in Anniston has changed. Acceptance now.
Yes.
It's history.
Right.
It must be kept. It must be told.
It must be told.
Must be told. Acceptance.
Taken out of the words from our former First Lady Michelle Obama, she said that, when you think about our trials and our tribulations, they don't make us, they don't make us. In fact, your trials and tribulations really kind of reveal who you are. Now, when that happened, again, it was sort of pushed in the back, and really we didn't want to really talk about it. Nobody walked around during the 70s as a little girl growing up in the 70s. It wasn't like we were talking about what happened in Anniston. And in fact, the bus station moved, right, Pete, from the Gurnee and moved over onto Highway 202. So the original bus station, for a long time, I never really knew that's where the original bus station was. So it was pushed under the rug, and it was almost like we were ashamed of our history. But now we are embracing it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me more about how do you, with you, a longtime educator,
Yes.
our generations, our young people,
Yes.
how is this going to
You know,
impact them?
Culturally, that's it's history, and culturally, it's going to mean a lot to them, because for a long time, like you said, it was not accepted, and people that was in offices would say, "Oh, it didn't happen in Anniston. It happened in the county. It happened out there."
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm.
And so when I went to get the marker for 202 and went to the council, and I was told, "Best you forget it. It didn't happen in Anniston anyway."
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. But it did happen.
I want to bring up a picture too, if you don't mind, Jordan. He's in a director's seat there of the original bus station there on Gurnee Avenue. As I mentioned, I never knew that's where the original bus station. There it is, and that building still looks exactly the same. Great photo.
Very similar.
Very similar. And that's where our celebration is going to be too.
And that building is now owned by you and I and everyone watching television because it is owned by the National Park Service. It is a part of the federal government now, and it had been transferred from a private ownership to the National Park Service just days before the president was able to make his decision.
Okay.
Along with others, there's another monument in Beaufort, South Carolina. And of course, to our west is the Birmingham Civil Rights Monument. So 3 new monuments were named on the same day in early January.
Right.
But again, this Saturday is our turn
It's our
to
time.
celebrate.
And when we come back, I've got to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to talk more about what we are going to be celebrating on the 13th and where we're going to be celebrating. So don't go away. We'll be right back. You're watching Local Matters. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Local Matters, where living local never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rimpsey, and it never feels so good to be sitting here talking with Mr. Pete Conroy and also with Miss Georgia Calhoun. They have been here on Local Matters many times, and it's always good to have you guys here because whenever you come, you're coming and you're bearing great news and you're bearing great information to us. So it's always good to have you back. So before we went to break, we were talking about the big celebration on May the 13th and what that celebration really is all about. Can you tell us a little bit more, Pete, about that celebration? We're expecting people from all over from all over the world to be there.
Well, I was there at the old bus station this morning and met people from Atlanta and Pittsburgh and Birmingham this morning. And
Wow.
every day people from all over the place are coming to Anniston and Calhoun County to learn more about the origins of the civil rights movement. So the 13th, starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're now told it's going to be nice weather, and
Yes.
it's always makes me nervous to say something like that out
course,
loud,
of
but
course.
nice weather, cool temperatures, low chance of rain. So at 3 o'clock, Gurnee, the place where this incident took place in 1961, will be transformed into like a little street festival. There will be educational tables, there'll be shaved ice and ice cream, and there will be people describing what had happened, and it'll be a great opportunity to listen to music, but especially
Yes.
meet the Freedom Riders. We have 4 of the original Freedom Riders
Whew, I'm
confirmed.
just getting chill bumps just thinking about it.
Well, no one's getting any younger, and
That's
so
right.
this is an opportunity to meet people that have really played an important role in the shaping of this country.
Yes,
But there'll be music, but also an opportunity to get your passports stamped. Every national park unit has a stamp, and we now have a stamp. Also get signatures from the Freedom Riders.
I can't wait.
And meet with people like Georgia Calhoun that have layers and layers of stories about how we've come so far.
Yes. And when I think about, Ms. Calhoun, this question is for you. When I think about, again, going back, and I'm envisioning the Freedom Riders talking about and planning and strategizing. You know, a lot of times women, especially then, we didn't really have an out front role in the movement, but women were so vital to the civil rights movement.
Sure, we were there to support the marchers. Now, we must remember that the Freedom Riders were young people, and they had, a lot of them came on without their parents even knowing that they were joining the Freedom Riders.
Wow, yeah,
Yes.
and yeah, I can imagine.
And so they were taught, now, you can't fight back. Whatever happens, you don't hit back, you don't fight back. This is an humble thing.
Wow, I want to
which
bring
would
up,
be
I
hard
don't mean
do.
to cut you off, you just hit the nail on the head. I want to bring up a picture of Miss Diane Nash, when you say how they were taught, because no, I don't think anybody, we are taught that if somebody hits you, you hit them back. And so Diane Nash was very, she was very key in working with young people, beautiful young lady. She's still alive, but she was attending Fisk University, and this was a strategy that she worked with these young people to help them to understand how do you hold back when someone's kicking you, spitting on you. So you talk about that a little bit more, Ms. Calhoun.
Yeah, they were taught. Now, remember John Lewis, how he was beaten well, he's beaten twice in
Yes.
Selma, and then beaten in
Yes.
Carolina at a lunch counter, you know. And later on, the person who beat him saw him and said, you know, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing, you know, that kind of thing. But all the way down, they just gathered, they would pray, and then they would sing.
They would sing.
And
yes.
singing always soothes whatever
Yes, it
problem
does.
you're having.
Yes, it does.
And and all the way through, they were just very, very tolerant of what was happening.
I am so, again, just thinking about going back to the event again on the 13th. A lot of our young kids are going to be involved in the program as well. They're going to be singing, they're going to be dancing. This is an opportunity with this big celebration and what we have planned for Anniston. That's our future. Those young kids, and they need to know what happened so that they can then be great representatives themselves for the city of Anniston.
That's exactly right. And one of the added attractions we'll have on the 13th, we will have activities for children. And
Okay.
so not only will there be serious, important things to learn, but there'll be a lot of fun to have had too.
Okay.
We'll have parachutes to play with,
Wow.
and ring tosses, and hula hoops, and good old-fashioned games from the 1960s. But at the same time, there will be plenty of people to meet and interesting things to learn.
Okay.
And think of how much this is going to do for Anniston.
Great
Oh,
point.
yes.
Yes. You see, it's economically, it's going to do it, and tourism.
Of
is-
course.
is yes,
Of course.
best industry. Nobody comes to see Walmart.
That's right. You're right. You're right. Nobody's coming to see Walmart. You got that right.
They come.
We've got to go to break. We've got to go to break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about the big event on May the 13th, honoring the civil rights freedom riders, and then honoring Anniston, because it's time now. We're going to be telling our story. It's going to be a big day for us. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more Local Matters. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Local Matters. We're living local, never felt so good. I'm Dottie Rempsey, and I'm joined with Mr. Pete Conroy. He's a director there at Jacksonville State University with the Environmental Policy and Information Center, and also Miss Georgia Calhoun, a longtime educator. She sits on the board of the Freedom Riders Committee, and so does Pete as well. He's the co-chair there, and we've been talking about a big event that that's scheduled for Anniston. It's May the 13th, going on pretty much most of the afternoon from 3 until about maybe 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock that afternoon. But we are also excited because we are going to be telling our story there at the Freedom Riders National Monument event on Saturday. People will be there from all over the world. We will have folks here, original Freedom Riders. Mr. Hank Thomas is going to be joining us. He was in fact, I'm told, Pete, he's the only living Freedom Rider that was on that bus that day that pulled here into Anniston.
On the Greyhound, he's
On the Greyhound. We have got to start really preparing, and that's what we've been doing in Anniston. We are really now preparing because now that we have been designated a national monument, we understand now tourism is going to be a really big plus for us. Talk to me more about tourism, Mr. Pete Conroy.
Okay. It's Dottie Rempsey.
Yes, right.
The most important thing, of course, is telling the Freedom Rider story. And but as a secondary benefit to that, people will want to hear the story.
Yes.
And again, we're already seeing people from all over the country, in fact, all over the world, coming to Anniston. And like Ms. Calhoun just said, they're all going to need to stay somewhere and eat somewhere. And it brings up the success that we had somewhere else in Alabama. In 1992, the Little River Canyon had been declared as a national preserve.
Okay.
And years later, Jacksonville State University was able to build a building up there, and it's a visitor center.
Wow.
And initially, there were a few people coming to see the pretty canyon, and then more and more. Finally, we passed 100,000 people, made it to 200, 300. But in the last year, it's gone up to nearly 500,000 people a year visiting, with a $16 million annual economic impact. And I'll say it
That's
again.
huge.
A $16 million annual economic impact to the people in Fort Payne, Cherokee, and DeKalb counties. And it's because they were able to prepare and develop really profit centers around this attraction.
That's right.
And so right now, folks in Anniston and in Calhoun County are beginning that process. How can we honor and protect the accurate story of the Freedom Riders and sincerely raise up the story, and at the same time help the economy and create jobs for people who need jobs.
That's right.
And so be thinking about those restaurants and be thinking about the best possible tourist experience from people coming from all over the place who are interested in learning about our history.
All right. We've got to make ready, and as I always say, the time to be ready, it's not the time to be, getting ready. We're getting ready now because the infrastructure has to be built, and that's what we're doing. I know we've got many different projects that are on the rise. How long do you foresee and anything really taking place, especially out on 202?
Well, it will depend on a number of factors. Fundraising is one of those factors. Georgia and I will be launching a fundraising campaign on the 13th, and as soon as we can have funds to do big things, we'll be doing those big things. And one of the ways we'll get people over here to the Anniston area is by use of an existing asset, and that's our Amtrak.
Yes.
When National Park Service brought to our attention that the Amtrak station in Atlanta is not far from the MLK unit, It is clearly a great idea to make sure that those visitors hop on that train in Atlanta, get dropped off in Anniston, learn all they can possibly learn, and then take a train home. It could be a really neat package. There'll be lots of different packages.
So there's a lot to this, and I can, I'm envisioning now many jobs coming with this. There's a lot of various programs that we could be working with, even on the federal level, like urban and housing development. So many different programs. I want to go back to you again, Ms. Calhoun, because you were a longtime educator and have worked with the youth for so many years, in this county. I have a picture up, and I wanted to bring that up too, Jordan. It's a picture of young kids in our community, and they are it looks as though they're unveiling. There it is, unveiling the
Yes.
Freedom Riders Park. For some reason, that really touched me.
That was.
How does it does it touch you in a certain kind of
Sure
way?
it does. Sure it does. And don't you know, those children going to say, they will be able to say, I am so proud to be from Anniston. And we were a part of that program because we unveiled the first sign that was put out there on 202. And listen, from my Black History program, when we have the oratorical,
Yes.
all those children who write creatively, they got something to write about now.
Yes. Yes, they do. We don't have much time left. We're going to be ending. We've got very little time left. Pete, how can people get involved? How can people get involved if they are thinking right now, maybe perhaps building a partnership with the city of Anniston, with the federal parks? How can people really get involved and say, I want to be a part of this? I want to be a part of growth.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. And through the Chamber of Commerce, through the Northeast Alabama Community Foundation, through the city, through the county, through Jacksonville State, but also through our committee. And we have a really great website that's freedomriderspark.org. There's a donate button that's easy to find. But most significantly, we will need deep pockets to do important, everlasting things. And so we are interested in raising monies. And so a couple of dollars here, or corporations, we're looking for connections on a very large scale.
All right, you've heard it all. Don't forget, May the 13th is coming up soon. So make sure, if you're not doing anything Saturday, you don't have anything really to do, come on down and join us. May 13th, right on Gurnee Avenue. We're going to be there celebrating our city, celebrating the Freedom Riders. And maybe we'll even be celebrating you. If you're interested in starting a business or building a partnership, this is the time to do it. We'll see you back here next week on more Look Alive.